All right. I don't have a lot of notes on this. This is one of those situations where we're putting together everything that you have learned before. And so I think that there's more practice needed than notes, but we are going to give you one set of notes for this. What we're doing now is we're solving a system of equations of word problems, solving them by substitution. So when you have a word problem like this, first thing you're going to do is define your variables, then you're going to write out your equations, and then you're going to solve by substitution, just like you have before. So let's go ahead. We have the owners of the Riverview restaurant have hired enough servers to handle 17 tables of customers. The fire marshal has approved the restaurant for a limit of 56 customers. How many 2-seat tables and how many 4-seat tables should the owners purchase? So let's see. We know that we're going to have a maximum of 17 tables, regardless of how big they are. And we know that the fire marshal is saying we can only have 56 people in there. So it wouldn't make sense to get all 2-seat tables, and it wouldn't make sense to get all 4-seat tables because it just wouldn't work. So the question is, how many of each table? How many 2-seat tables and how many 4-seat tables should they purchase? So as we're defining our variables, we really need to think about what are we looking for to answer? What questions do we have? Well, that's this right here. How many 2-seat tables and how many 4-seat tables? So let's use our variables for those. And X and Y are the common variables, but we could use other variables. But in this case, it doesn't make sense to use anything else. So we just have to remember. Let's go ahead and use X to represent the number of 2-seat tables. And let's let Y then represent, can you guess, the number of 4-seat tables. And now that we have our variables defined, we're going to think about how we can use those. What equations can we write? So let's look at that first thing that we know that we have to have, 17 tables total. So if we're talking about the number of 2-seat tables and the number of 4-seat tables, we're going to add them up, right, to get 17, the number of total tables. So how would we write that with variables? Right, X plus Y equals 17. So the number of 2-seat tables plus the number of 4-seat tables equals 17 tables total. Good. So how are we going to use this now, these variables? How can we use those to talk about how many customers we should have? Well, just like we do with money, we think about, well, each 2-seat table gives us 2 seats. 2 customers can sit there. And each 4-seat table gives us 4 seats. So just like with a cost, we're going to multiply. So the number of seats that we get at X is going to be 2 times X. So depending on how many tables we get that have 2 seats each, we multiply that by 2. That tells us how many people total can sit at those tables. We'll do the same thing for Y. We're going to multiply 4 people per table at those Y 4-seat tables. So, and then we can add that, 2X plus 4Y. So this is how many people can sit at our 2-seat tables, plus this is how many people can sit at our 4-seat tables. And how many people total should that be according to the fire marshal? Right, 56. Okay, now we have our equations, and we're going to use those to solve by substitution. So I'm going to write in green. You don't need to copy that down because you already have notes as to how to solve by substitution. But in green, I'll just write little reminders. So step 1 is what? We've got to rearrange one of these 2 equations for one of our variables. So we can make one of these equations into X equals something or Y equals something. Think about which one looks easier. Yeah, I would say the top one. And what do we want to solve for, X or Y? Well, in this case, it looks like it wouldn't make a difference. So, sorry, I forgot to say that. So we're going to solve one equation for either variable, for either X or Y. So we decided to take the top equation, X plus Y equals 17, And just to be different, I'm going to go ahead and solve for x this time. So I'm going to subtract y from both sides to isolate x. So when I'm trying to solve for x, that means I want to get it with everything else, get rid of it. Okay, so I subtract y from both sides. I end up with x equals 17 minus y. Okay, now I've isolated, I've solved for a variable. It doesn't do me much good right now, but what I know is that x equals this expression. All right, so step 2 is what? What can I do with this? That's right, I can substitute it in to the other equation. So step 2, I'm going to substitute this bit of information into the other equation. There's my other equation, 2x plus 4y equals 56. What am I going to substitute in? Well, I have x equals 17 minus y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace x with 17 minus y. So I'll rewrite that equation. So 2 times, instead of x, 17 minus y, in parentheses, so I remember to multiply to distribute. And then I can copy down the rest of my equation. Plus 4y equals 56. Now I'm just going to start solving. Because I only have one variable now here, I can solve. And I'll end up with hopefully a true statement, or hopefully a single solution, y equals something. So let's see, I've got to distribute. So 2 times 17 gives me 34. 2 times negative y gives me negative 2y. Copy down the rest of my equation. Plus 4y equals 56. What am I going to do next? That's right, combine my like terms. So I now have 34 plus 2y equals 56, because negative 2y plus 4y gave me 2y. And I just need to get y all by itself. So I could divide, but let's go ahead and get rid of that 34 first. Let's subtract 34 from both sides. What do I have on the left? 34 cancels, all I have is 2y. And on the right, I'm left with 12. Now all I need to do is divide both sides by 2. And I end up with y equals 6. Now I know exactly what y has to be for both of these equations to be true at the same time. Okay, move on to step 3. We're going to substitute that y, that value for y, into either equation. Doesn't matter which one, so let's pick the easy one. X plus y equals 56, or equals 17, sorry. We don't need to make life any more difficult on ourselves. It's already difficult enough. So instead of y, we're going to write 6, because that's what we know y equals. So we're going to replace y with 6. Let's write our new equation. X plus 6 equals 17. Yes, I know you can do this in your head. Let's do it the mathematical way. Subtract 6 from both sides. We end up with x equals 11. Yay! So theoretically, we have a solution. X equals 11, we have an x, and y equals 6. I can write that as a point for now, 11, 6. Step 4, don't be lazy if it's on a test or something that is not notes that I'm walking you through. Check your solution, you know how. But for now, we're going to imagine that we checked it. Are we done? Not quite, right? Because this is a word problem. That means we need to give our answer in sentences. This is not an answer to the question of how many tables should he buy. So let's write that as a sentence. He should buy 11 two-seat tables and 6 four-seat tables. There we go. There's our answer. All right. See you in class.